quiet moments before dawn, when the world is hushed and the only sound is the slow breath of night, imagine a single ripple spreading across a still pool of water. It begins as a tiny disturbance, barely noticed, yet it stretches outwards, fracturing the surface into trembling shards of reflection. That ripple, small, fragile, holds within it the paradox we carry in our hearts, the yearning for peace that somehow unsettles the very calm we chase. We sit in stillness, seeking quietude, yet somehow become the originators of our own unrest. There is a shadow behind the mirror of our tranquility, a subtle hand tipping the glass, inviting chaos where we longed for calm. Why do we become the architects of our own unrest? What quiet force nudges us to sabotage the peace so dearly craved? This is not a story of failure. It is the secret rhythm of the human mind, where safety and fear, love and resistance intertwine in delicate tension. As the ripples catch the light and fracture the night, so too do our own inner ripples challenge the stillness, revealing an intricate dance of self-interference and longing. In this unfolding silence, we begin to listen, curious and tender, to the whispers beneath our own sabotage. At first glance, it seems almost cruelly paradoxical. The mind, longing for peace, turns from harmony to discord, becoming its own saboteur. This internal conflict feels like a shadow play, hidden, nuanced, less a roaring tempest than a quiet erosion beneath the surface. It is as if peace itself teeters on the knife edge of a secret war between what we desire and what we deeply fear. Psychologists have long been fascinated by this contradictory dance, where the self disrupts its own equilibrium. The phenomenon unfolds most clearly through what is called cognitive dissonance, a state where our thoughts and feelings pull against each other, refusing to settle into a single truth. Cognitive dissonance is that uncomfortable stirring inside us, the tension of holding two opposing beliefs or desires at once. For the mind seeking peace, this dissonance might manifest as a subtle undermining, perhaps in the shape of negative self-talk, indecision, or self-sabotaging behaviors that feel like invisible ripples beneath our calm surface. Carl Jung's concept of the shadow deepens this understanding. The shadow is not simply the dark side, but rather the parts of ourselves that we reject, deny, or fail to integrate. Those hidden facets that carry unconscious fears and desires. When we do not acknowledge these shadows, their presence sparks internal friction, subtly fracturing peace with the weight of unexpressed conflicts. It becomes clearer then why self-interference feels so intimate and personal. It is not an external enemy, but our own mind delicately balancing the precarious dance between comfort and change. Self-regulation, the capacity to manage our thoughts, feelings, and behaviors in pursuit of long-term goals, becomes fragile under this tension. Our attempts to preserve peace can falter precisely because the very mechanisms meant to protect us are entangled with unconscious patterns that resist tranquility. This intricate web explains why, despite our deepest intentions, peace sometimes slips through the fingers like water, disturbed by unseen internal currents. The paradox stands firm. Our longing for peace may ignite the very sabotage that steals it away. And it is in this tension, this quiet clash beneath the surface, that our story unfolds. The story of self-interference and the subtle art of living with our fragmented whole. The experience of sabotaging one's own peace can feel like a slow unraveling, a persistent whisper of disquiet that refuses to be silenced. Psychologists describe this as the interplay of several core processes: cognitive dissonance, the workings of the shadow self, and failures in self-regulation. Cognitive dissonance, as first articulated by Leon Festinger, is a fundamental tension within the human psyche. It arises whenever we hold conflicting cognitions, such as beliefs or values that don't align with our actions or feelings. Imagine the person who fervently desires peace but simultaneously struggles with harsh self-judgment or unresolved anger. The mental disharmony creates subtle chaos. It pulsates beneath the surface like an unsteady flame. This dissonance pushes us to reduce discomfort, yet the paths we choose to resolve, it can themselves deepen unrest. Some might escape into distraction, others might slip into self-criticism, and a few unwittingly become architects of their own peace's undoing. Jung's theory of the shadow helps illuminate why these internal conflicts persist. The shadow contains the traits and desires that our conscious self has denied or repressed, parts of ourselves that feel unacceptable or unsafe to reveal. When these parts are ignored, they grow in shadowed potency, influencing behavior without our overt awareness. The tension between the desired peace and the presence of a rejected shadow creates a silent sabotage, a friction that often manifests as self-inflicted emotional disturbance or counterproductive actions. For example, someone craving calm might unconsciously provoke conflict in relationships, mirroring unresolved inner turmoil. The failure of self-regulation is the stage where these conflicts become manifest. Self-regulation involves the deliberate management of impulses and emotions in accordance with long-term goals. But when the shadow stirs or cognitive dissonance spikes, the delicate balance falters. The mental system, overwhelmed, can slip into cycles of emotional dysregulation, where previously controlled impulses erupt as anger, anxiety, or self-sabotage. It is important to recognize, however, that this is not a personal flaw, but an inherent aspect of human complexity, a reminder of how deeply layered the mind is. Within this landscape, the act of sabotaging peace becomes a paradoxical attempt to maintain psychic coherence. Sometimes creating conflict or discomfort is an unconscious effort to align internal worlds that feel fragmented. The ripples on the pool, small acts of interference, are ways the psyche tries to reconcile disparate parts of itself. The mind plays a subtle game. By undermining peace, it hopes to propel acknowledgement of hidden wounds or neglected needs. This dance between resistance and desire is a delicate balance. As we peer deeper, we find that self-sabotage often carries a message about identity and safety. For some, peace equates to vulnerability, and the mind rebels against that exposure. Others may glimpse peace only when turmoil feels familiar. Trouble, strangely, offers a certain comfort in its predictability. This intricate pattern means sabotage is not mere failure, but a protective, if painful, strategy to hold together a fragile sense of self. To wander through this tension is to move across a landscape where light and shadow intermingle, where peaceful surfaces conceal restless depths. It is a journey that invites us to witness our own internal paradox with growing compassion and curiosity. And through this witnessing, the hope emerges, not of perfect peace untouched by inner conflict, but of a more tender, embodied harmony born from embracing the whole self, shadows included. In facing the quiet sabotage within, we come to a tender reckoning. The mind that disrupts its own peace is not a traitor, but a guardian, however flawed, of something deeply treasured yet precariously held. To understand this is to shift from judgment to gentle listening. The feelings that rise when peace is marred often carry hidden messages, echoes of fear, protection, and a yearning that refuses simple expression. Beneath the unrest, there is a longing for wholeness, a desire not to fragment, but to reunite lost parts of the self. This longing is as old as time, a silent pulse beneath our most restless moments. It reveals how self-interference is itself a form of communication within the psyche, a language spoken in the tremors of anxiety or the hesitation to rest fully. In allowing space for these internal voices, we recognize that sabotage is not the enemy, but a signal, the psyche's weaving of protection and exposure. There is a compassion that grows when we acknowledge how fear of vulnerability often sparks the ripples of unrest. To desire peace is to desire still water, but still water is fragile, easily disturbed by the smallest thought or emotion. The interplay between safety and risk reveals the complexity of our emotional landscape. It is tempting to imagine peace as a fixed state, a sanctuary one steps into and never leaves. Yet peace is a living mosaic, composed as much of shadows as of light. Embracing that mosaic means accepting the tender imperfections that shape our inner world. And so, the feeling left behind is not defeat, but bittersweet relief, a quiet recognition that our interference is part of the human story. It is in this acceptance that a gentle empowerment takes root, the power not to control the ripples, but to hold them with grace, to observe the fractures without falling apart. This shift from resistance to presence invites a deeper intimacy with ourselves and the complex dance of peace and unrest. There is a soft bravery in simply being with our contradictions, an unspoken courage in the space between conflict and calm. And within that space, the mind begins to find a new rhythm, one that hums not with the urgency of demand, but with the steadiness of awareness. Through this awareness, the story of sabotage changes from one of inner defeat to one of evolving understanding. The paradox remains. The desire for peace can both inspire and unsettle the mind. Yet, through the slow unfolding of self-awareness, a new harmony emerges. Not one defined by the absence of interruption, but by the presence of acceptance. The fractured mirror no longer signals brokenness, but reflects the complexity of our being, each crack catching the light differently, each fracture itself a story worth holding. It wasn't about perfection. It was about presence. It wasn't about eliminating ripples, but learning to move with them. In surrendering the illusion of complete control, we meet ourselves more fully, anchored not in relentless striving, but in gentle witnessing. The hand that once reached out to still the trembling water now recognizes the dance of disturbance and calm as inseparable. This awareness is a quiet freedom, a bittersweet kind of peace that holds tension and release side by side. And so, the architecture of our unrest becomes a testament not to failure, but to resilience, a living, breathing testament to the strange art of living with oneself. To sabotage one's own peace is not a flaw, but a mirror, a subtle language of the soul's secret needs and fears. Through this lens, we glimpse a deeper truth. The path to peace is not through perfect stillness, but through compassionate presence with all parts of ourselves, light, shadow, and the spaces in between. And in that presence, something pure unfurls, a steady pulse beneath the ripples, a quiet peace that carries us home.